Good afternoon YouTube and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be teaching you guys 4 basic tricks that are going to improve your riding in all aspects. The first one I'm quite frequently asked how to do it, and especially more so since I've been riding trials, and that is the back hop. Back hop is as simple as it sounds. You literally just hop on the rear wheel. You might be sitting there thinking, well, how's that going to help me? It's all balance, it's all control, which comes in handy with all kinds of riding, especially if you want to start riding trials, because that is the basis of absolutely everything. Before we start, there's a few things that we need to take note of. First of those being that the rear brake is so important, and you're going to need a quite powerful one, or really powerful one, because your whole weight is resting on that back brake. So if you've got a bad one, it's just going to slip. Secondly, if you're doing it on a full suspension bike, it's going to be harder than a hardtail because the suspension's going to take all your energy. And thirdly, with a back hop, it's quite easy, especially when you're learning, to hop backwards. So just be mindful of your surroundings. Don't do it near a road, don't do it near a stinging nettle bush or something that could injure you. To get things started, you're going to roll along at a nice slow speed, grab a handful of front brake and rock forward, do a little endo, and then locking the rear brake, pull your weight back, get it onto the back wheel. If you ride clips, then make sure you unclip at this point, because if you go too far, then you're going to land flat on your back. It might actually even be an idea, I'd say, to just practice doing the endo, lifting onto the back wheel, then stepping off the back, so you know where the balance point and the limit is. If you're not too comfortable on the rear wheel, what you can do is find yourself a log or a bench, rest your front wheel on it and balance, and just practice doing little hops, because this is going to get you familiar with being that vertical and in the position of being on the rear wheel. Now that you've got control in the bike on the rear wheel dialed, it's time to start adding some hops in. What you're going to do is repeat the process of getting it onto the rear wheel. Once the front wheel is high enough and the bike feels balanced, then you're going to add a little hop. It doesn't need to be big. It's literally trial and error with this as well, just feeling the balancing point. Like I say, you're going to find that you hop forwards, you're going to find that you hop backwards. That doesn't really matter. Once you can do about 2 or 3, you'll notice that you're starting to control the bike. If you feel like you're going too far back, push yourself towards a stem. That should help try bring the front down. Alternatively, if you feel like the front's dropping, extend those arms, keep your weight back, get your bum over the rear axle, and just play around with it. Now you and your mates are back wheel hop masters. To spice your ride up a bit, you can play some games and challenge each other. The first thing you could do is have a race against each other, which I would demonstrate, but I don't have any mates. The next thing you could do is try hopping up some steps on your rear wheel only. You could try hopping around an object, or you could even do a can crush challenge, which is where you see how many cans you can squash on the rear wheel. So that's a new trick in the bag. It's a nice, fun, easy one to learn, so let's move on to the next one. Swiftly moving on to trick number 2, and that is going to be pumping, but not using rollers, berms or a transition, just carving side to side on the ground. Now you might be sitting there thinking, how's that going to help my riding? But it's really good fun because you can actually get some good speed, and it gives you a really good understanding of how pumping a transition actually works. As you can see from those clips, you can get really good speed on just flat ground. And the best thing about it is it doesn't take long to learn. You don't need to spend ages perfecting balance or anything like that. You're going to roll along at a slow speed, a really slow speed, because if you go too quick it defeats the object of the pump and you won't feel the full benefit. And then in one smooth motion, turn your handlebars right, push as hard as you can into the floor and pull your body weight to that direction. Once you do this, you'll feel a burst of speed. Repeat the motion the opposite direction, and the faster that you alternate these 2 movements, the more speed that you will gain. As I mentioned at the start of this trick explanation, this is going to give you a really good idea of how pumping on a transition, a roller, a berm or on a trail works. And I actually done a video recently explaining the best places on a trail to use the pump, which I'm going to link in the description and at the end of this video. So check that out because it'll be really beneficial. Now that you've got this dialed, take it to a pump track and just apply the same technique, but instead of sideways, just into the ground, and then before you know it, you're going to be flying through roller sections. One last thing to mention, if you ride a full suspension bike, the feeling of just pumping like that with the suspension feels really good, so get out there and give it a go. Let's move on to the next trick. Trick number 3 is going to be an evolution of the first trick, meaning that we're going to learn the pedal kick. To get things started, you need to be in a medium gear. If you're in a gear that's too low, when you pedal, to get it onto the rear wheel. You're just going to spin and not have enough power to lift the front wheel up. So go along at a nice slow speed, select your medium gear, and then with your front foot you're just going to lift it slightly and then give it half a kick on the cranks. You don't do a full revolution, because if you do, then when you come to doing the hop, your feet are going to be in the wrong place. Just practice lifting the front wheel like this a bit on the floor to get familiar. Now you're comfortable lifting the front wheel, it's time to start adding some hops in, and this is where if you can do the back hop confidently, which we learned in the first step, it's really going to help, because you're already going to be comfortable with controlling your bike on the rear wheel. As ever with rear wheel tricks, your rear brake is the key, and that must be covered by your finger at all times, especially doing these pedal kicks because you use it a lot. So to get things started, you're going to do the process we've just done to get on the rear wheel. Once it's onto the rear wheel and the front wheel's at a reasonable height where you feel in control, you're going to just wait, pull your back brake and wait a minute. This gives you a second to just take in what's happening and balance. And then your cranks are going to come from here, they're going to go back to there, so you can then power, and you're going to give it a kick and a hop at the same time as releasing the rear brake. At the beginning I'd recommend just learning one hop and getting that dialed, because that is really going to help with the timing of releasing the rear brake and doing the pedal kick, because that's so important. Obviously to do more you need to have that timing absolutely perfect. Then it's just a case of, once you land, taking a moment, absorbing your landing, always land with the rear brake on, otherwise you're going to loop out. As you start to come back up from absorbing the landing, that's when you release the brake, kick the cranks again and do the next hop. And then it's just a case of repeating that process. Having something like the wheelie or the manual dialed is really going to help, because that gives you incredible back wheel balance, and that is really going to be handy for a trick where you're hopping along on the back wheel. Once again, with this trick, like all balance moves, it's just a case of trial and error, but with the information I've just given you about the rear brake timing and the timing with the cranks, just get out there, give it a go. It shouldn't take you too long to learn. You will pick it up quite fast, and it's a real good fun trick to go out there and learn. Also, a more advanced version of this is being able to hop directly on the spot. We've learned how to go backwards, we've learned how to go forwards. It's just a case of combining the two together, and you use one against the other to counteract it. Try and keep your hops small, try and keep your hops directly up instead of forwards or backwards. However, like I say, if you start going forward, hop back. If you start going back, give it a little kick on the cranks to go forwards. It's good fun, and then once you feel the control and start to feel dialed, you'll actually notice that you can just go any direction you want. You can go in circles, you can go up hills, down hills, upstairs, wherever you want basically. Trick number 4, and that's an evolution of the pedal kick, which means I'm going to be teaching you to jump up and over things. If you learned the pedal kick in the previous step, then you're going to realise that you're going to be able to jump little gaps. However, if you want to jump further or higher, then you're going to need some rolling momentum, which changes the technique with your pedals.
Yes.
Power and confidence.
Yes. Yes, 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 yes!
To get things started, you want to roll along at a nice slow speed as opposed to stationary with the pedal kick. Make sure you've gone up a few gears, maybe 1 or 2, because you're rolling now. If you kick with the cranks and you're in a low gear, then you're just going to spin and not have enough power to lift the front wheel high enough. The biggest change with this trick is that you're going to start opposite footed. So switch them pedals round, give it a little kick and then go half a revolution around, which is going to get you to normal, and then you're going to give it a little half back and then stamp on the pedals. Practice that to start with, because it's quite confusing. It can feel quite weird as well starting opposite footed, so just get that dialed before you worry about any hops. Now that you've mastered switching your feet around and you're all dialed in, just going forward and lifting the wheel again, it's time to try and hop as far as you possibly can.
Yay! Yes.
Once your front wheel is in the air after the opposite pedal kick, it's time to try and jump. The easiest way to picture this in your head is, now you're on the rear wheel, it's no different to landing a pedal kick, which we just learned in the last step, except you've got extra momentum, which means you can jump further. So apply the same technique. Now you're up there, half a crank back, kick, and then the only thing this time, if you're clearing a gap, is you're going to aim to jump over that gap, so push yourself forward. What I mean by pushing yourself forward is, imagine you're jumping a gap without your bike, you throw yourself forward and jump it. It's exactly the same technique with the bike, and that's where having that momentum of that opposite crank is going to come in really handy. Now that you're jumping quite far and possibly jumping gaps, you're going to notice that you'll be landing on the rear wheel. That's really good, because firstly, it's the best way to absorb your landing. You just compress all your body, and if you're using full suspension like me, that takes all the impact in the rear. Secondly, if you're riding trials, which is where this move is most commonly used, then it gives you control to get around other obstacles, especially if they're not even a bike length long, like walls and things like that. So using the skills that you'd learned earlier in the video, doing the back hop and the pedal kick, you should have enough balance to land most lines now. Other examples of where you can use this technique is the side hop, which is exactly the same motion, but you just, instead of jumping forward, you use your energy to jump up sideways onto something. You can use it to jump over things where you're going a bit faster, as opposed to the pedal kick where you really have to slow down and basically stop. It's a really good technique to have for jumping onto things, like if you want to jump onto a log, a wall or a bench, because you can just do it to rear, and that's really a really easy way of controlling the bike. And then lastly, the most advanced version, which I've not done on this bike actually, but you can go through the bike locks, or like I am in the video playing, you can go over the handrails of a bench or something like that, but that takes a lot of practice, and on these full sussers it's pretty challenging. So there we have it, that's 4 new tricks that you're going to go away with dialed from this video. They're all really good fun and all really beneficial to your riding in all aspects. They all help with balance, control, and they'll give you confidence as well. So if you have any further questions, then don't hesitate to put them in the comments, write to me on my Facebook page or my Instagram page. Leave a comment what you thought of this video, give us a thumbs up if you want to see more, and I will see you guys in the next one.